Intro, Outro und Sponsor, ja. Wenn ich Intro und Outro sage, dann muss ich auch Sponsor sagen.
Yep.
Did you get that? I'm so confused.
Also ich verstehe nur Bahnhof.
You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living between cultures with Josh and Phelan.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Understanding Train Station.
Did you hear the thing in the background?
It was probably a car in my street. Do you want to do it again?
It was the perfect timing. No, I think it should be fine.
Yeah,
it just felt like as soon as we started, it was like boop, as if like it was supporting our podcast.
It's like the pistol at the beginning of a race, right? Ready, set, boop.
But yeah, man. Well, welcome back to a new episode, everyone. What happened in your life, Josh? You traveled.
Oh, yeah, I have traveled. I'm trying to think. When was the last time that we talked to everyone? I guess the only real travel that I've had was going to France.
Yeah.
This past weekend, I went to Strasbourg. Strasbourg in German, or Strasbourg. I hate saying it in English. It just sounds like Strasbourg.
People say Strasbourg? Strasbourg?
In English, are you saying?
Yeah, in English. I didn't know.
Strasbourg, I think.
Okay.
I think we would say Strasbourg.
Okay.
I've been trying to work on my French pronunciation of it.
Yeah, Strasbourg.
It's weird. Strasbourg. But no, it was a really fun time. Me and some of my friends went. One of my roommates, she had her vaccine appointment in France, so we decided to make a weekend out of it. So we took my car and drove over there. My friends that weren't vaccinated had to get a PCR test, but at the end of the day, no one checked anything on any of the borders. So
yeah, I was just about to ask, because like traveling by car, I'm wondering if they would stop you at the border or how things
yeah,
work
they
right
didn't
now.
at all.
Okay.
It was just drive straight through. I think they were doing kind of a Stichprobenmäßig. You know,
what's that in English?
Kind of just random checks. Like they would randomly pull people out of traffic to probably check their documents and make sure as far as like COVID stuff was concerned. I saw that on the coming back from France into Germany, that the German Bundespolizei was doing that.
Okay.
The federal police. But going into France, there was no control, no checks at all. So, I mean, of course, it's still a good thing that they were following the regulations, my friends and I. But yeah, I had an amazing time. It was my first time in France.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, which the friends I was with are from like more of the Paris region and kind of the northern part of France. So like it's not like France. They're like, this is like the Germany part of France. Which,
this is Alsace,
historically, which historically is obviously the case. But we all had a great time. It was me and one of my other friends who hadn't been to France before. So we were just like, oh, this is amazing. And as you know, Germans tend to have a lot of like stereotypes, and I feel like a lot of Europeans do, of the French. There's a kind of like this hate, quote unquote, that's directed towards the French. Especially I know from some of my coworkers, like they'll sometimes call them Froschfresser.
Yeah.
And like, so it just was interesting.
Like frog eaters. Yeah,
frog eaters, basically, as like an insult. And I was really surprised at how friendly everyone was. I wonder if maybe it had something to do with the fact that I was there with people who speak French, so they weren't forced to have to speak English with us.
Well, also in that region, a lot of people speak German. Yeah,
I mean, we didn't try German at all. Mm-hmm. It was either French or English, but like I said, I was surprised because, and maybe a difference between that region, like the Alsace region, and obviously like Paris, where people have a lot of their stereotypes from. But I was surprised with how friendly everyone was.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a really good time, and now I can check France off of my list, but I'm sure I'll be back soon.
Yeah, you should probably go back to see other parts of France. But like, did you get to speak any of your basic French?
Yes, I did. And I mean, I was there. I felt like a little kid, and it was fun too because my roommate doesn't necessarily speak that much German, so she was excited, and my other French friend who was with us, they were excited to be in the driver's seat and watch us struggle having to communicate, since we're normally the ones that have to help them here in Germany. So it was kind of a fun role reversal, but I definitely was able to try out some of the French that I've been learning, and it was a really fun time. And now I'm more motivated to learn French. Which
cool.
kind of takes us into kind of the topic, or not the topic for this week, but our sponsor, which is Lingoda. Thank you, Lingoda, for sponsoring us in the first place. They're doing their language sprint again, which I'm sure you guys have heard us talk about in the past. It's an intensive language course where students are challenged to consistently take language classes for 3 months straight. And then if you attend all their classes, Lingoda will refund 50% of the course fee. More than 40,000 people have participated in previous Lingoda sprints and loved it because of the learning method and how it boosts their confidence in speaking and shows results in a super short period of time, which if you're like me and are super impatient, especially when it comes to learning languages, this is a great opportunity to kind of jumpstart your learning process. You can transform your language skills and go from small talk to having real conversations in just 3 months.
Yeah, so that's like a really, really cool opportunity, especially with the 50% cashback. They offer classes in English, also in business English if you need English for work, then German, which of course is a really cool language, Spanish and French.
10 out of 10 recommend.
I'm like looking at all of these languages. Josh, you're gonna like be fluent in all of these almost, because I'm already fluent in 3 of them, and you're about to be fluent in French, because knowing you, whenever you start learning a language, you're going for fluency. So.
And actually, yesterday I just signed up for the French sprint. So if you decide to sign up as well, then you may see me in one of the classes.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you guys are going to be one of 70,000 students that they have worldwide. And some of the perks of Lingoda is that, first of all, they have super flexible learning hours. I mean, it's an online language school. So like, obviously that makes it super flexible anyways, because you can learn from wherever you are in the world. And then also with the flexible learning hours, they offer classes 24/7. So it doesn't matter which time zone you're in. You can always find a class. And I showed it last time. Maybe you can put a little screenshot for the ones of you who are watching on YouTube right now. You'll see it now that whenever you pick your language, you'll get to pick your level, and then you also can just pick your topics, like your grammar topic or content topic. Like they'll have things like going to the mall, grocery shopping, but they'll also have classes that just go past tense in German, like things like grammar topics like that. So you're just very flexible with picking your classes, and of course you also see which teacher it is, so maybe after a while you'll have a favorite teacher. And all of their teachers are native speakers, which is very important, because that means that you'll actually get to learn the language in a way that it's actually spoken in the country. And of course you'll also be able to pick up on the real authentic accent, which Josh and I both know that that's pretty important too. And the cool thing is also that the classes are pretty small. So it's usually 2 to 3 students per group class, a maximum of 5. So that means that you get to ask a lot of questions. It's very interactive. So it's not like you're just sitting there and listening. No, you're going to have to read things, answer things, speak the language, and that will help you a lot with your progress.
Exactly. There's no real hiding in those class sizes. One of the other cool things that I found out while I was signing up as well was, if you're kind of like me and learn languages kind of in bits and pieces just through osmosis, they also have a little placement test that you can take if you're not sure exactly what level to start with. So I definitely would recommend doing that if you sign up. Some of the hard facts that are important for you guys to know regarding the sprint is that you have to sign up by July 16th. The sprint courses start on August 2nd. For the super sprint, you have to attend 30 classes a month for 3 months, and you get 50% cash back. And then the regular sprint, you attend 15 classes a month for 3 months, and you get 50% cash back. Make sure you guys check out all of the T's and C's, the terms and conditions, as far as the 50% cashback is concerned, just to understand what you're getting yourselves into. But each plan,
you're going to have to complete all those classes to get the cashback, not just sign up for them.
Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah. And then another important thing to understand is that each plan is paid in 3 monthly installments, but yet it requires a deposit of 49 euros or $59. But if you use our discount code, which is FAST47, you get a 20 euro discount, which is about $25 discount as well. So just click on the link in the info box below. It'll be in the info box on the YouTube, but also in the podcast description to sign up. And don't forget to use the discount code. I used it and I was able to save the 20 euros. So make sure you guys also check out their FAQ session too, just if you want to understand more before signing up.
Did you sign up for the sprint or the super sprint, Josh?
I did the regular sprint because I have a busy schedule.
Yeah, so 50 classes a month for 3 months. I mean, that is still like a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, wow. Well, thanks, Lingoda. And going back to your topic about speaking French in Strasbourg. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, it's a beautiful city. I've been there a few times. I did like an exchange in 10th grade where I was there for a week and lived with a family, and then they came over for a week to Munich. It was right after my Cincinnati exchange. I did the Cincinnati exchange, was back in Munich for like a week or two, and then we did the Strasbourg exchange. And that's why I said like a lot of people there speak German, because like usually with like a lot of these exchanges, it's usually the Germans that speak the other people's language. But for this one, because it was Strasbourg and it was this region of France, we didn't speak English with each other. No, they all spoke very good German. Like our main language was German, which didn't really help with my French skills. Like all of us like just mainly spoke German the whole time. So yeah, and then like I've also visited a few times afterwards, because there's a really cool amusement park pretty close to there, but like on the German side of the border in Rust, Europa Park. And it's like a pretty short drive from there to just visit Strasbourg. So whenever I went to Europa Park in the past, I would also just take a little day trip to Strasbourg, because it's a very, very pretty city.
Oh, I was so surprised how beautiful it was. One of the funny things too is that like on all of the street signs, it's in French, and then it's in quote unquote German. It's like in the dialect of the area, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of history there. I've also like been to other parts of France, of course, which you definitely will have to check those out in the future.
Definitely.
But yeah, for all the Americans among you listening, for us it was 4th of July this past weekend. So you were in France at the time. We were all here drinking beer, watching fireworks. Did you miss the US on that day?
I did. It was actually kind of funny. In Strasbourg, some of the bars had put out like American flags and had like little balloons. I don't know if there were a lot of Americans in the area that they were just trying to attract to the bars, but I'm like, I feel like that's not something I would see in Germany. So a part of me did miss it, but it was nice to see some 4th of July spirit even in France. But I spent most of the day in the car, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm kind of surprised about that too, because France, like Germany is kind of Americanized, and France definitely isn't as Americanized, and they don't like to speak English, and they don't love to, I mean, it's not all French people, of course, but like a majority of French people don't love to listen to English-speaking music, etc. So I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it as well.
Interesting. But yeah, I mean, I just did the typical American stuff. Drank beer.
Some hot dogs.
Had some, grill out. Well, vegetarian hot dogs.
Vegetarian.
I bought some vegetarian ones. Because every time, like, I don't usually need meat replacement products, because I never ate meat my whole entire life, basically. So, like, I don't need that flavor. But whenever I'm, like, at a grill out or something, people just constantly worry about me, which is bullshit, because I've been this my whole life. Like, you don't have to worry about me not eating enough. There's always enough sides and stuff. But no, for those reasons, I usually bring something so that people just feel okay with me having something to eat. And then, played some cornhole and
I missed
watched fireworks.
That was
you
one
can
of
bring it to Germany.
That would be, I guess I could make my own boards here, because transporting a cornhole set across the Atlantic would not be.
No, that's true. But hey, check out like Amazon or something. I'm sure you can buy it somewhere. I feel like, because like beer pong has become so big in Germany. Like Germans are so insanely competitive about beer pong, like way more than any Americans I've ever met, that I feel like if you brought cornhole over, people might get competitive about that too.
Yeah, you're right. That would be fun, playing cornhole in the English Garden. But I guess transporting the boards would be a little difficult. For all of you Germans or people who are listening who don't know what cornhole is, you have to look it up.
Okay, that's the explanation.
You'll have to
How
look
helpful,
it up.
Josh. No, but like, you know how much stuff people bring to the English Garden on their bikes? Like, I'm sure people could manage. I mean, they bring whole like cases of beer there.
True.
So, yeah. I think it'd be possible. But yeah, that was my 4th of July, and it was very, very hot this weekend. I mean, perfect weather. Can't complain about that. It was very hot on actual 4th of July, which was a Sunday. So like at night, I just walked around like in the neighborhood that I was in and just like watched all the fireworks there. I watched like kind of like the official fireworks the night before on Saturday night. But it was so warm even at 10 p.m. I could hardly bear it. Cincinnati humidity.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely do not miss. But at the same time, the weather here has actually been pretty cold and rainy. So it was the 4th of July, but it didn't feel like the 4th of July at all, because I didn't have the humidity that I'm used to around that time of year.
I'm sorry.
It's It is what it is.
It is what it is. But today, we've been talking about so many different cultures. French culture, German culture, American culture, and now we're bringing a fourth one in because our guest today is from the UK, but she lives in Germany, and you guys might know her from a YouTube series from Deutsche Welle, DW, called Meet the Germans. They also have an Instagram account, and we were very happy that we got to get her on the podcast for an interview. It was a very interesting conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. Just a little disclaimer, she was recording herself on her own microphone for the first part of the interview, and then for the second part, because we had to restart the Zoom session because we don't have Zoom Pro, and Zoom didn't give us the free unlimited session, which sometimes Zoom does that. But anyway, we had to restart the session, and she forgot to click record the second time. So like halfway through the episode, you're going to hear her audio quality kind of decline a little bit, but it's still good enough. But just so you know what's going on, it's not your audio device that you're listening on. It's just what happened throughout the conversation, but that doesn't take anything away from the very interesting content.
Yes. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's jump right in.
So we're here with Rachel now, which Rachel and I have been in touch a few times through Meet the Germans because I was on the Meet the Germans Instagram story a couple times. And you actually reached out to me, Rachel, but this is the first time that we're really like meeting or e-meeting face to face. So I'm very happy that you're on our podcast today. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I feel like I have met you before anyway, but...
And I feel like I've met you because I've watched a lot of the Meet the Germans stuff. So
exactly.
I feel like that's the weird thing when we finally interview people like who also have an online presence.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like I know you, but you have no clue who I am.
It's so weird. You just have to be careful not to say too many personal details that you don't want to be too stalkerish.
Well, that actually brings me to the topic, because even though I have watched quite a lot of videos of the Meet the German series, and I even showed them in my German class back like 2 years ago when I taught German at the University of Cincinnati. I think they were even part of an exam once. I don't really know a whole lot of personal things about you, because at least from the videos that I've seen on Meet the Germans, there really aren't a lot of videos that are focused on you as a person with your personal background. So let's maybe start with that. Where are you from? I know you live in Germany right now. And how did you end up in Germany?
Yeah, well, I'm in Cologne, Germany right now, and I've been here for the last 5 years.
Oh, wow. It's not even that long.
It's not that long, but it's like a complicated history, you know, been back and forth. And
Got it.
So I'm from the UK, from a small place called Hereford, which is on the border between England and Wales. And I then moved to Bristol, studied. I lived in London for a while. And while I was doing my university degree, it was a languages degree. And the third year had to be done abroad. And I spent half of that time on the fabulous Reunion Island, which is technically a French island, but it's in the Indian Ocean. It's right next to Mauritius. Oh. Great place to do some studying. I can recommend it.
Really productive studying.
We were working very hard, I have to tell you. And while I was working hard, I also met and fell for a German guy, which was absolutely not on my radar. It was not something I was planning to do, but what can I say? He was very cute. And yeah, from that point on, it was kind of back and forth. It was long distance. We've been together now for 11 years.
Wow.
And only the last 5 of that have we been in the same country. So.
Wow. So for the majority of your relationship, you guys have been apart.
Yeah. We had like stints where, I mean, he never actually had a stint in the UK, so don't know what I was doing wrong there. But I was over here for, I think 4 months after I graduated. I came over and worked in an Irish pub.
Oh, cool.
And obviously didn't learn that much German that way. Not the best tactic. And then I went back to London, and then I was back over for almost a year, I think, living in Neuss, which is near Dusseldorf.
Okay.
But working from home, so it was, again, I wasn't really integrating very well. Went back to London, and then finally made the proper move over in 2016 because I got the volontariat, so like the traineeship with DW.
Okay. And then that was the way that you got your visa or Aufenthaltstitel
well,
or whatever.
You know, back in those wonderful days when the Brits were welcome, it was very easy. I mean, it's kind of, makes me think I'm kind of naive now that to not even realise how difficult it is for some people. I mean, obviously I knew it, but you just don't even think about it when you're a European citizen. You can just go anywhere you like in Europe. And actually,
but you still have to have a work permit or something, right?
Well, I actually yesterday had my first ever experience at the Ausländerbehörde, so the immigration office. I've never had to go there before because of having the privilege.
See, no,
of being
that's like
European.
me being naive. I kind of thought that even if you live in the European Union, I thought you had to have a work title if you want to live there for longer. Oh,
Not at all. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I don't know why we threw it away. But now, I have to have a residence permit, and I went yesterday, and I actually tweeted about it because it was such a nice experience. It was so fast, and the woman was lovely, and she didn't even want to see all my paperwork I'd brought with me. I was so confused. So then I tweeted about it, and everyone was really shocked that it was such a nice experience.
Yeah. It's so hit or miss. I mean, I guess I've had really good experiences with the Ausländerbehörde, but as all of our listeners know, with the Fahrerlaubnisbehörde, horrible experience. So I feel like it just really depends on who you get. It's a lottery, I feel like.
Yeah.
But then I guess, that's weird. So now you have to have a work permit and all of that. But due to your relationship, I assume it's relatively easy for you to get what you need, right?
That's why I was a bit confused about yesterday, because there wasn't really many questions about what I'm even doing here, or I took my contract from work with me, hoping I could proudly show it to her, but she wasn't interested.
Oh, really?
I had my marriage certificate with me. She wasn't bothered about that either. So I'm not really sure, to be honest. Maybe she was just having a nice day. I don't know.
I wish I would have had that type of Beamte when I had my when I applied for my driver's license.
I have to say it's the same in the US too. I've had very strict and unfriendly people, like especially at immigration at the airport. And then people who are just like, oh, that's what you're doing here? Great. Like they didn't want to see any proof. They're just like, have a great time. Welcome to the States. I'm like, wow.
Last time when I went back to the US, they didn't even look at my passport. He saw I had an American passport in my hand and he actually didn't look at the picture page or anything. He just asked me. Yeah, it was very weird.
He did not do his job properly.
And I was going to say, I think someone's getting fired tomorrow.
I didn't remember his name, so.
Wow.
So now, your time in Germany, you've spent then in Nordrhein-Westfalen, right? Pretty much the entire time.
Yes, apart from 4 months where I lived in Berlin.
Okay.
Which was part of the traineeship. We moved around a lot, and 4 months of that was Berlin. Yeah.
Cool. Do you like Köln?
I love Cologne. Yeah. I mean, so DW is based in Berlin and Bonn, and the traineeship is based in Bonn. So my initial choice was, do I move from London to Bonn?
That's a big
and I
change.
decided I couldn't do that. And my husband was already, or boyfriend at the time, was already living in Cologne. So I decided I would definitely base myself here. Great decision. I really like Cologne. I know it really well now because I've been back and forth visiting Manu for so long. And I think it's a good size. I think, but I don't find Berlin dauntingly large like everybody else because of having lived in a larger city.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
I don't think I could live anywhere smaller than here because I think especially as an international person, right? Like you kind of need more going on because otherwise you just sometimes need the chance to escape from, you want to completely be involved in the local life and have your local friends and that kind of thing, but you need to have that extra possibility also to meet other international people or just have a bigger life going on that you can get involved in.
Yeah.
So a typical German question, what's the population of Cologne?
Well, I believe
Making German small talk.
The latest estimates would be around 1.23 million.
Okay, so it's a little smaller than Munich.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. It's the 4th largest city in Germany after Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, from my perspective, I couldn't live in a smaller place either.
Right.
I definitely need my escape.
What's the population of Cincinnati?
It depends, right?
Cincinnati proper is like 330,000, I believe. But the city proper is very, very small. Greater Cincinnati has, I think... Help me out, Philly. It's like, I want to say 2-point-something million.
See, I don't know that number. I'll only know the smaller number because that's what Germans want to hear. They don't want to care. Like, they don't care about how many people live like an hour away or 40 minutes away. Yeah, do look it up. But I think for all the listeners who don't know about the geography of Germany, we should probably mention that Bonn and Köln, Cologne are very close together. So it's actually possible to live in the one city and work in the other city. Just like with Düsseldorf too.
2.3 million.
Those cities. 2.3?
Yes.
Impressive.
That's a lot. But yeah, usually when people ask me, I'm just like, yeah, 300, 400,000, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel crowded here at all. Like when I tell people that I live in Cincinnati, I usually describe it as like a mid-sized city, kind of like it still has all the perks that, at least in my opinion, a big city would have. But compared to Munich, it's just so much more relaxed. There's space. You have space for living. Like there are backyards that are big. There's parking spots. Just, you know, compared to Munich where everything's really crowded, and I'm assuming it's kind of similar in Cologne. But it's also obviously very similar in London, so you're used to it. But for me, it's just really, really nice to be in a place where there's actually space and people don't have to be cramped together all the time.
And for me, it's the exact opposite. I like being in a place where people are closer. And I can walk everywhere.
The more, the better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, well, we have a few different topics that we would like to talk about with you. Obviously, let's maybe start with the most basic questions that I know you've been asked many, many times before, probably. But what were the biggest culture shocks coming to Germany as a Brit?
Yeah, it's 100% is just the surface level niceness, which I've come to appreciate is not a question of if someone's being horrible or not. It's just a question of how people on the receiving end interpret it. And coming from a culture where we say please and thank you and sorry all the time, probably too much, I found it quite difficult to adjust to that. So especially because if you feel like it's an attack on your personality, you feel like you've done something wrong, or it immediately puts you on the back foot in a situation where you're already on the back foot because you don't speak the language 100%, right. You don't know everything around you, so you're already feeling a bit vulnerable in this situation, and then someone comes along and says something really gruff to you, which to them, they'll have forgotten it 2 seconds later, and for me, I'll the rest of the day I'll just be feeling like, what was that woman's problem?
Yeah.
That's 100% the biggest thing I've had to come to terms with, I think.
I mean, that's something that a lot of Americans struggle with too, because it's very similar in the US and in American culture. I've had a few Americans actually come to Germany for the first time, and then I would let them order something by themselves, at the bakery or something, or at a restaurant or a cafe, and they would come to me afterwards and be like, oh my God, that person hated me because I was American, or they hated me because I didn't speak German, and I'm like, probably not. They were probably just not a nice person, because that's just normal in Germany not to be overly friendly. It probably had nothing to do with you being American. It
definitely rubs people up the wrong way, though. And I think coming from America, it would be even harder, because I find even as a Brit sometimes the American friendliness a real step up. So between that and Germany must just be it's worlds apart.
You definitely need cultural training before you arrive.
Yeah.
Did you have that?
No.
Rachel?
Oh.
I know about you, Josh.
Only in the form of my husband telling me stuff. But
Was he able to kind of prepare you in a way?
He didn't try.
Okay.
I think he still doesn't really appreciate the sort of changes you go through if you move to another country, because he hasn't done it,
It's definitely hard to... What's the word I'm looking for? It's definitely hard to understand, I guess, just if you haven't gone through it. That's what's so nice about having friends. For example, Josh and I, we both know exactly what it's like for the other person, because we've done the same things. And I have a few other German friends who live in the States who also understand that about me. But I totally know how, for other locals, it's just what are you even struggling with? This is not a big deal, but for you coming from a totally different culture, it is a pretty big transition, and it usually takes a while too. People sometimes think it only takes you a few months, but usually that transition process takes a couple of years or something at least, because you go through different stages.
And I mean, you even said totally different cultures, but at the end of the day, they're still both Western cultures. So I can imagine coming from a completely different culture that I don't know, somewhere from Africa or East Asia. That would be a big adjustment too. But one of the other questions I had for you, Rachel, kind of off of the culture shock question, is what stereotypes have you been confronted with as a Brit? Because for me, being an American in Germany, you hear, oh, they're fat, they're dumb, they're arrogant, they're loud. What are some of the stereotypes that Germans tend to have of the UK?
Well, I'd say overall, I was actually positively surprised with the majority of people, the ideas they seem to have about the UK. And I was really surprised to come across so many people who had visited the UK and seemed to enjoy it as a holiday destination. Because I certainly couldn't say the same the other way around. When I was growing up, it was never a thought that you would go to Germany on holiday. It just wasn't a thing. You go to France, maybe. So I was really pleased about that, actually, and people telling me nice tales of their youth going to the UK. I'd say the main stereotypes that annoy me are things about food or something, that it annoys me that everyone thinks we have a cooked breakfast every day with like beans and sausages. Like, that just really annoys me because it's not true.
Well, what do you eat for breakfast?
I like to eat cereal for breakfast. And I think in my household, I think my dad would often on Sunday cook a breakfast, but we wouldn't all eat it, and it would, it'd be once a week a treat. Anyway, so that bothers me, and for some reason, it is not irritating, but it seems strange that this idea of the tea time thing has stuck so much internationally in the image of the UK, because we don't all sit down at 5 p.m. or whatever time it's supposed to be, or 4 p.m. and eat scones and little cakes and drink tea. It just doesn't. We drink tea all day. We drink tea any time of the day. It's fine. It doesn't have to be at 4 or 5.
But I guess that's going to be an ignorant question for me as an American. But what is, like, people say, oh, do you want to come over for tea or tea time? Like, is that like, what time is it supposed to be? 5 o'clock? Like,
well,
if
no,
someone
you
says
don't
that they come
say.
over for tea?
You don't. Yeah, you say, do you want to come over for a cuppa? But that could be any time of the day.
Okay.
It's here, if you said, oh, do you fancy coming over for a coffee? You could do that. I mean, you probably shouldn't do it like 10 p.m., but it's exactly the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
I like to sometimes compare the like stereotype of British tea time to German Kaffee und Kuchen. That's like how I sometimes explain it, because like I would definitely say that German Kaffee und Kuchen is an actual thing that does happen, and it usually happens in the afternoon, kind of like a couple hours after lunch or something. But obviously not every German does it. And I mean, we definitely sometimes do it when we have family, people like aunts or someone visit us, or people who visit from out of town and they just want to meet up for like not a whole dinner, but just casually coming over, hanging out. Then it's usually going to be Kaffee und Kuchen. My mom's going to maybe put some cookies on the table, have some tea ready, maybe some coffee. But as you said, that's not necessarily something that Germans do every single day. And probably the same with British people, obviously.
So some Germans have probably been frustrated that they haven't been over or invited over to your place for tea time.
Probably. But I actually did for a long time keep the habit of when people would come to my flat, the first thing I would do is say, would you like a cup of tea? Because that's what you do in the UK, or very often. But I've got completely out of that habit now.
Really?
No,
what do you
one
offer people now?
Would you like an Apfelschorle? No, usually coffee.
Coffee, apple spritzer, sparkling water.
It's always very popular.
That's funny. I do have a question about tea, though, because I've definitely heard a lot of British people complain about the quality of tea in the rest of the world. And for me, at least, compared to the US, I never realized that we actually do have quite a large tea selection in Germany. How is the German tea, really? Is it good, or...?
Well, it's an adjustment, because when I talk about tea, I mean like black tea, which I would then drink with milk. And it's a very specific tea. And I think most people back home, you grow up with a particular brand that your family would drink. And that's what tea tastes like to you. It's the same as beans, like a particular brand of beans that you ate. That's what beans taste like, and you can't eat other kinds of beans. It's the same thing with tea. So coming here, and I'd say the black tea on offer there's not that much of it. And I don't particularly like it. I also don't like the milk. So then when you put them together, it just doesn't taste like what tea tastes like in my mind. But the Kräuter tea selection is fabulous. I mean, I've tried things here that I had never had before. So I'd say that sums up to that. And also, I think I told this. I can't remember if I did this in a video or somewhere. But the first time I came to Germany was on a German exchange. And the family, being very kind and thinking, oh, she's from the UK, offered me tea at breakfast time. And I said, yes, please. And then they gave me a cup, and I immediately put milk in it. And then they all sort of recoiled in horror because it was strawberry tea. And I didn't know because I'd never seen fruit tea before at that point in my life.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I mean, that was a long time. I was probably 12, I think. But it was a shock.
I didn't
It tasted
realize
horrible.
that. I didn't realize that like British people didn't even know that kind of tea. Wow.
I mean, I don't know. Now, of course, you can get all sorts of fruity teas in the UK, but I really think it wasn't such a thing back then.
Interesting. Yeah, I never would have thought that. I mean, I for me, a standard like British cup of tea would be a black tea, or like for me, Earl Grey or something. But yeah.
Yes. Very nice.
Hold on. You said you don't like the milk, though? German milk? I think German milk is amazing.
I was going to say, you just really walked into a Fettnäpfchen because Feli is
sorry.
obsessed with German dairy products.
No, but I'm just surprised. Does British milk just taste different, or is it actually better?
Well, again, I think it's what you're used to.
Yeah.
And you're going to just probably turn the camera off now because what I was used to at the point when I moved over here, I guess it stemmed from, health and trying to eat less fatty stuff or whatever. I used to drink in the UK what's got a red lid, which is, I think, 0.1% fat.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And when I moved here, I couldn't find half fat, I couldn't find 0.1 fat, I couldn't find anything that wasn't whole milk. Now it seems to be a bit easier to get the half one.
Yeah.
But for me, that's still too creamy. And now I don't drink milk anyway. I only have oat milk, so it's fine.
That's really interesting, though, that in the UK, that the red lid means that it has reduced fat, because in the US, the red lid, at least at the supermarkets that I would go to, means that it's whole milk.
Oh, no, that's dangerous.
Yeah. So all of you Brits who
blue
are thinking
is
of going to
full
the US and getting milk, be careful.
The colour coding, they just need to get on top of that worldwide. Anyway, I have this problem with salt and vinegar crisps, which are finally coming to Germany, which I'm very happy about. But the colour's often different, because in the UK they're green packets, and here I think they're usually blue.
Hold on, what are we talking about?
Salt and vinegar crisps? Oh, sorry, chips.
Chips.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I didn't understand the first part. I was like, blah, 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 what? Salt and vinegar. Like, just any brand? Just like that?
Yeah, I mean, they don't
Okay.
have that many brands here yet, but
You said in the
are
UK
there-
it's green?
yes. Well,
Isn't
the main...
it green here, too?
No, I think in the US, green for me would be sour cream and onion. If I saw a
True.
a bag of green chips, it would be sour
Like
cream
Pringles.
and onion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
True. I do know a lot of Germans who love salt and vinegar chips, though. So
I hate
The
them.
best flavour.
I don't know if they can get them in Germany, or if it's just like everyone who's ever been abroad, they're like, oh, I love this stuff. I have to import it from the UK now every time I go. But I don't know if you would be able to. Can you get it now in Germany?
Yes, there's
Okay, good.
even in Rewe and some of the normal supermarkets, you can get a couple of brands.
Cool.
Interesting.
It's
my
probably-
life.
Well, now, Feli, you'll have to try, when you go to Jungle Gyms next, you have to see if they have any British milk that you can try. Jungle Gyms is an
Any-
international market in Cincinnati. That's
Yeah.
huge.
I mean, I don't know if milk imported from the UK would
Probably
taste all
not.
that good.
It's funny too, because I really do think that German dairy products, or overall like most European dairy products, maybe the UK wouldn't really fall under that, are superior to American dairy products. Not just milk. Like milk
Oh
is
yeah,
really
no
just
question about that.
yogurt,
Yeah.
cheese, all of that stuff. But when you think about it, though, Germans really appreciate the fat. Like we do like fatty
Yeah.
butter. We do like the fatty milk. We don't
Yeah, it's
only
kind
like
of sold
the
as
fat.
it's completely opposite to what I would be used to at home, where everyone would splash on like a 0% fat
Exactly.
as a selling point. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it's definitely the other way around.
Yeah.
More fat for your money.
So one thing that really surprised me from watching the Meet the German videos was how good your German is, which I know is funny, like from an American telling a British person, "Oh, your German's so good," but I thought at the beginning that you were actually German. So how did you learn German, and what was that process like for you?
Well, first of all, I take that as a big compliment. Thank you, because I've heard you're German, so I know you're very good at it. Yeah, I don't really know. So I studied languages, as I said, French and Spanish. So technically I can speak French and Spanish, but I don't really speak them, and I feel quite terrified if someone speaks to me in those languages. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that, I lived there for a very brief amount of time during my degree, but never really lived there, and I wasn't really in daily life there. Whereas here, I am, and it happened quite slowly over a long period of time. So it wasn't like, I went to Germany for 1 year, tried to learn as much as possible, and then left. It's been a really long learning process. I did have evening classes when I was at university. So I went on the year abroad, fell for the German guy, came back, realized that maybe it was going to be something a bit longer than we expected. And so I signed up to some evening classes, but they weren't very good. I didn't really learn very much. And then I decided just try it organically. So little by little, we started talking a bit more on the phone. I would try out my German. The more I came over here and met his friends and mostly his family, who didn't speak that much English, just gave me that push to keep trying. And I'm not sure, but I think there are just some languages that click better with you, right? And I think German just happened to be that one.
Wow.
That's cool.
Did you keep taking any classes when you came to Germany?
No.
Wow.
No. I mean,
That's
I think
very impressive.
I think if you learn some languages before academically or whatever, like you actually study them, then you have some kind of a basis, right? Especially if it's, they're not that different, these languages that I'm talking about. So, I understood verb structure and I understood you had to conjugate things, that sort of thing. That's the basis. And yeah, it's just able to then build on it with vocabulary coming in slowly.
Cool.
That's cool.
And I think, grammar will never be perfect, but I just don't care.
Right. No, I have to agree with Josh, though. Like, the first times when I just heard you say certain German words in, like, a Meet the Germans video, I always just kind of assumed that you might be both, like, British and German, because your pronunciation is really, really good, especially when it's just single words. Like, it really sounds like a native speaker. I haven't really heard you say longer sentences, I don't think, except, like, in a video. Is there, like, a video that I can watch where you actually speak a little bit more German?
Oh, it's a good question.
Or we just do the rest of this interview in German.
Okay, switch.
I don't feel like writing subtitles.
I think the only time I've been recorded doing German is when Meet the Germans, when this series of Meet the Germans started. I went on DW television and they do like English, they do lots of languages, but they do English and German at the same TV show, news show. So I was interviewed on that in German, which was quite terrifying. That was the first time I'd ever been live talking in German.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably very true. It's probably when you're speaking just one word or one sentence, you can sort of get your mouth around it quite easily. And I will talk very freely and happily in German for an entire conversation. I work in German most of the time. My department is all in German. So when I'm talking to my boss, it's in German, all of that.
Cool.
But when it's that much at a time, it will definitely be peppered with mistakes. And there will always be that moment where you suddenly go, ooh, I don't know what the next word is. And then you make something up and it sounds a bit awkward. And that's for sure where people would realize, she's not a native German speaker.
Right. But even if it's just a single word, though, you do have to have the pronunciation down. Like, I can just tell that you know how to pronounce German words. You know how to do the vowels. You know how to do the R and everything. So
I think that's the one that I think for some reason that just fits with my speech.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're lucky being a Brit too, because you don't have to work against the hard at the end of words. You're already used to just kind of swallowing it.
That helps. That definitely helps.
Definitely. We had one of the questions that we get a lot is what language do you think / dream in? So we've both answered this on multiple occasions. So what is the case for you?
The dream one I find difficult because I'm not sure I always remember. I know back when I was studying French, I remembered one time when I dreamed in French, and I was like so excited by it. But the thinking thing, I do definitely both. And sometimes I catch myself imagining a scenario and the people are talking German. And sometimes they're not, people who would talk German, which is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that definitely happens a lot.
One of the questions that I had, and I was trying to come up with a good way to formulate it, but I think you just gave me a good example where you quote unquote stumbled over dreamed versus dreamt. Do you find yourself wanting to correct Germans when they use American grammar or American spelling as opposed to British?
Well, I correct my husband. I've been working on him now for 11 years to get him to be British. Others not so much, and I'd say the more I've been here, the less that even crosses my mind, because I work for a company where the standard English is American English. So I've actually had to train myself to spell things with a Z instead of an S and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I've become Americanized since I've been here.
That's funny.
Although I still say Z and not Z.
Move to Germany to become Americanized.
Yeah, that's my dream all along.
Have you also found your English to kind of suffer by being around German people a lot that obviously make a lot of mistakes when speaking English?
Of course.
Is there anything that you picked up in particular, like any mistakes that you do now too?
I think there are sometimes like slightly grammatical things or just like awkward things. Like instead of saying what, sometimes saying how. Like what's the example of that? I can't quite think of. But sometimes they would say where we would
Like
say
how does
what,
that
they
look
would
like?
say the. Yes, how would they look like? Exactly. Yes, that would be a perfect example. And then in terms of vocabulary, a classic example would be home office. And I say that all the time now, even if I'm talking to my British friends and say, I'm doing home office today.
I was actually watching your live stream that you had on YouTube in preparation just to try to hear some more about like your background story. And you said you were sitting in home office and I was like, okay, is that just a British thing or is that a German thing? So
and then some people have
it's a
called me
German
out in
thing.
the comments as well. They've said,
Oh, yeah?
hey, you just said home office. And then because I've said in a video before that home office is wrong. And now I say home office all the time. So there's no
We
hope.
can't all be perfect.
That's how languages
Exactly.
work.
Yeah, there's so many eingedeutschte things that I have in my life, Germanized.
But it's fun, right? And it also means
yeah.
that you kind of end up with a sort of secret language for this crossover of people who can speak both of those languages. It's fun.
Yeah.
I know like one thing that my family has like caught on to is now I tend to say flat a lot more often as opposed to apartment. I would never say flat in the US. So have there been things like that vocabulary that you've quote unquote learned or adopted in Germany that's still English that you wouldn't necessarily use in the UK that friends or family have commented on?
I'd say there's some things that don't exist in English, some German words that I try and throw into English sentences sometimes. The most obvious being oder at the end of a sentence, or ne. I mean, in the area where I am, ne is very big. My mother-in-law says ne after like every sentence. And I've definitely adopted that a lot. Even if I'm speaking in English to people, it'll end with a ne.
So you say an English sentence and then you end it with the German ne?
No?
Yes, or the German oder. Because there's no good equivalent to it, and I wouldn't say it in English. But it's so natural now to end with one of those that it just comes out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess the closest thing that we would have in English is the Canadian A.
Yes, I have. That's so weird because I've actually started saying that. And I mean, I went to Canada once for a week, like 15 years ago. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think probably for that very reason, that has now come into my vocabulary too.
Don't British people say isn't it and those kind of things a lot at the end of sentences?
Well, no. Well, that's quite a sort of archaic sounding thing often. Or there's a very specific situation where you would say that. But that's quite interesting because that's actually something I noticed that Germans do quite a lot, or more often than they should when they're talking English, unnecessarily with an isn't it or isn't she or wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Sounds quite
probably
formal.
because Germans are so used to doing the oder thing and then they're looking for some equivalent in English. Yeah.
Yeah, so they Google it, what's the equivalent, and then stick it on.
That's actually kind of a running gag in my office because my boss, I think he used it once incorrectly, and now everyone makes fun of him that he says it all of the time, and people make fun, or that he uses it incorrectly, but he doesn't.
Never live it down.
Yeah, and it.
I think that's like the reason why I say, for example, a whole lot in English, just because I say zum Beispiel a whole lot in German. And Americans, at least, I don't know what it's like with British people, but Americans don't really do that a lot. They either just say like or such as, or they just don't say anything. They just throw in the example. And in German, I always say, for example, and people sometimes call me out on that.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I wouldn't notice.
I think with, for example, I would only really use that in a formal setting. Yeah, it doesn't really, it's not part of my normal speech. Who knows?
Yeah, well, in German, it's totally part of my normal speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any other language questions, Feli? Otherwise, maybe we can jump into the.
I don't
Deutsche
have
Welle
any,
stuff.
I don't think. Oh, well, maybe one more. I don't know if this is like too personal, but what language do you speak with your husband with? Because you just said that you guys started speaking German on the phone pretty early on, which honestly is really impressive because I know how hard that is, especially since he obviously spoke English. It's really hard to then like stick with another language that makes the conversation a lot slower usually. So what's it like what is it like at your home with languages?
I think now that I live here, the majority is German,
Oh wow, okay.
but we switch all the time, and we switch in sentences, within conversations. We don't even notice we're doing it most of the time. And sometimes I'll notice that we'll have had a whole conversation where I spoke English for the whole time and he spoke German back. Sometimes even the other way around, weirdly enough. So yeah, it just is a constant mishmash. And I think from the outside, it probably sounds very strange. But
No, I think that's the best possible situation you could have, because I know a lot of people who move abroad, especially like English speakers who start dating a German or Spanish person or French person, and then all they ever speak is English. Even if the other person tries to learn the other person's native language, it's just English is easier, and that's why it's comfortable, and that's why people stick with it, which then usually leads to the English native speaker not really learning the other language very well. So yeah, that's actually...
I think I remember quite early on just feeling so frustrated meeting his friends and just feeling like I was just sitting there because, you know, you can smile and you can look engaged, but at the same time, that's a lie because they know that you don't know what they're saying. Therefore, what's the point of laughing along? But then if you don't laugh along, you literally just sit there, sort of stony face, and you just think, this is the most awkward thing ever. And it's the hardest thing, I think, to accept the fact that your personality is different in a different language. And the better you get at the language, the more of the real you comes out. And it's amazing to see that. And it feels so exciting, you know, when you make your first joke in another language and people actually laugh, that kind of thing. Yeah, but it takes so long, right?
It's super funny that you mentioned that because that was actually the topic of our last episode, which isn't out yet at this time where we're recording the episode. So you don't know about this. But if you guys who are listening and watching right now want to check out that episode that Josh and I did on different personalities and different languages, check out the last episode. But you're definitely 100% right. I totally agree. Especially when you don't know the language that well. We also talked about how you sound dumber, but we also talked about the humor thing. You just can't be as funny usually. And then once you can actually get to the point where you can make the jokes in the other language too, it's a very big accomplishment.
Yeah, I actually find sort of a mixture of the humor and the being a bit dumber thing. I find that the first thing that you reach for is kind of like a dad joke because it's the obvious surface level, ha ha ha, spit slapstick.
Right.
And it's the sort of thing, you know, I think, oh God, I would never have said that in English to somebody. Why did I do that? But, you know, people politely laugh at you, so at least that's something.
Talking about humor, do you find that there is a pretty big difference between British and German humor?
Not as much as people always say, and probably not as much as I expected. I think that it's weird because I know that Germans say they don't think they take themselves very seriously, but I think that the Germans take themselves seriously. And I think that the Brits cover everything in humour to just get through any situation, which includes self-deprecating humour a lot, and, you know, sarcasm and irony and all that kind of stuff, which I think you see less here because I think it just comes back to how the Germans will say it how it is, and the Brits will beat around the bush a little bit more, and sometimes that includes humor.
One thing I recently saw Dinner for One, which obviously is a British well, it's not a British production, but it's with British actors.
Well, did you see Rachel actually reenacted that for a video?
Oh, I didn't see that
awesome.
video. Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You might have recognized me because I had a grey wig on.
You did the whole thing? Yeah. Oh yes. Okay.
No, we did like snippets of reenacting, and then in between like told information about it.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, then now I need to watch that video before I ask any stupid question. I just was going to ask, like, do you constantly get confronted with that?
Well, it definitely at first people would always around Christmas, New Year time be like, "Oh, Dinner for One," and I had heard of it because I think probably on maybe my second Christmas here. It was on telly and I was like, what is this? And then found out all about it. My boyfriend told me about it. Then I started Googling. And no one at home knows it. So once I did that video, I found out that some other countries, not just Germany, are obsessed with it, but not the UK.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually learned about it by watching QI, on a British television show. Yeah. And it was one of like the topics. Completely random because no one in the US has any clue what it is.
No. I mean, it's unacquired taste, let's say.
I would agree.
I love it, of course. The German in me loves it.
So the way that we know you is obviously from the production of Meet the Germans at the Deutsche Welle. Maybe you could talk a little about how you got involved there and how you started.
Yeah, well, I, many years ago, maybe 8 years ago or something, was looking for jobs in Germany, English jobs in Germany, sort of starting to think like, could I ever live in Germany? I think back then I was still studying, and came across Deutsche Welle and found this page where they described their traineeship. And I was already starting off in journalism, and I was interested in making a career out of that. But back then I just could barely speak German, so it just wasn't a possibility. And then a few years later, I can't remember where, but I saw again something mentioning that. And I thought, well, actually, now I probably could get away with it. My German's much better. And it was just the right time. I'd established my beginning of my journalism career a bit more in the UK. And I decided, yeah, I'm just going to go for it and see whether I get in. And I was like, it's probably not going to happen. It's very competitive. And I don't know, it was kind of like me deciding I want to move back to Germany for good, or at least for the moment, and trying to find a place there that wouldn't just be me moving over here to be with Manu, but would actually give me a life here,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. And I was so shocked, but they took me.
That's so cool.
And the rest is history.
So, but you didn't start with Meet the Germans right away, right?
No, so I did the traineeship for 1.5 years, 18 months. And it's really cool. You get to do multimedia. So you do radio, you do TV, you do online, you do social. You go into different departments. I think I was with science, with culture, with news. And you also do like a little placement somewhere else that you organize yourself. I went to the BBC. You go to a Auslandsstudio, which is called, I always forget this word.
Correspondence something?
Yeah, like a correspondence studio, like in another country. And
International Post.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I went to Washington, to DW in Washington, and that was really cool.
In DC?
In DC, sorry, I
Yeah.
should always be more specific. Quite different. Yeah, so it was just really, really cool, very intense, also great in terms of meeting other Germans. So my year group had 12 people in it, and 10 of them were at least half German. So I had like a great tight-knit group of friends that way immediately, which was really cool, and all also quite young. So yeah, that was just a really good introduction. And then after the traineeship was over, they sort of look, where could you slot into the company? Where would you fit best? And I ended up in culture. And it was just really good timing that at that time, the show Meet the Germans, which already existed, was looking for somebody to take over for the time being.
Oh, okay.
So the previous host, she went on maternity leave. And yeah, I just was in the right place at the right time, really, and got the opportunity to, sort of slightly rethink what the product was and to put it in my own direction, which was really cool.
Well, cool. So how much of the work do you do yourself? I know you do a lot, because like just recently you reached out to me because I posted something about editing in Adobe Premiere, and now I had found a new feature, and you were like, yeah, I just happened to find that 2 weeks ago myself. So I know you edit yourself. What else do you do yourself?
Well, most of it, really. I mean, luckily, sort of the team around Meet the Germans has grown a little bit, especially over the last year. So I have a couple of great producers who I work with, and so I know them really well, so it's quite nice. We sort of start from the very beginning of a new idea. I'll come up with the topic that I want to do. Sometimes the topic will come from a user's recommendation, or perhaps someone in the department will suggest something. And then we'll talk about it together. We'll both do research in both languages, German and English. And then we'll discuss it, see which points I, as an outsider, would find the most interesting, and she, as an insider, would find the most interesting. And then I'll come up with a script. Then it'll be edited by the producer. Then we'll plan the shoot, find interview partners, that kind of thing. We usually shoot for just 1 day, sometimes 2 days. And then I'll edit it. And then they will do the Abnahme, which I'm never quite sure what to call in English, but sort of the final check.
Yeah, approval.
So it's quite nice. It's always a process from start to finish with one producer whenever possible.
So how long would you say is the whole process for one video?
Very hard to estimate, but whenever I try, it comes down to about 7 working days.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's always, it's spread out.
You can tell too, because those videos are such high quality.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, you get some people being like, what? 7 days for 3 minutes.
I mean, I'm not surprised because I make videos
Yeah.
myself and I know what it's like, even for I'm just a one-person show. And for me, and my videos just take place in one setting. I just sit down in front of the camera. But as you said, the research and then the editing and everything, and I can't even imagine what it's like doing what you guys do, because you sometimes for every like 10-minute slot, you have a different image in the video. Like you do like a little cool like Scrabble thing to show a word or something, or like for every single thing that you drop, you have something creative to show it in image form, which I don't do that, and I can only imagine how much work that would be. So I'm not at all surprised that it would take like 7 days.
So how big is the team actually, if you're allowed to say?
Well, I mean, that's it really.
Just
on the video side. So there's, obviously there's Meet the Gems YouTube and there's Meet the Gems Instagram. So on the YouTube side, it's me and a producer will work on whichever video it is. And the producer will sometimes change, but it's mostly almost always the same one. Katarina, shout out. And, it's coordinated by another person in the department. But yeah, working on the video, it'll just be two of us. Oh, and of course the camera person, how could I forget? So usually Evgeny, a lovely camera guy, is with us. And we've worked together now for so long that we kind of know how each other work. He knows exactly what, I'm almost always 10 times on a filming day will say, mittig, also direkt gerade. And he always wants to go to the side and film it like a proper camera person. I'm always like, no, YouTube, just do it from the front. So we have a little part about that.
I think that's really interesting because from an outsider perspective who doesn't have a lot of experience in multimedia or anything, I assumed that there was like this huge production team behind it and you just kind of showed up and were the face of it, not that you were so involved in the details. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess that's like a hangover from TV, that's often the case, is that it's like a really big thing and there'll be someone doing just the microphone and someone else doing the lighting and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, the more you want to produce, obviously, the more you've got to thin that down. And I guess it also comes from the fact that I prefer watching stuff on social anyway, rather than something like a shiny product on TV, which is why I probably don't mind so much if we perhaps sacrifice on a few of the shiny elements in order to get a bit more pace in, do a few more locations, that kind of thing. That's more important to me, I think.
Didn't you guys have some new faces join recently, though? At least on Instagram, I think I saw a few new people.
Yeah, so then Instagram is another kettle of fish.
Okay.
We are turning 1 next week. So it's we've been running the account for 1 year now. And yeah, it's something we wanted to do for a while, because every time I make a video, I think, I could have done that, I could have done that. There's all these different elements that you can't put into this one video.
Right.
And then once you put it out there, obviously you get so much feedback from everyone else saying, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? So it's great to just have a place where you can just go into way more depth, cover so many different things, but in like also short snippets. So it's not like it has to be a topic that could make a whole video. So the team, I think there was 5 of us already at the beginning, and they're freelancers, so they're not working on it every day. I'm the only person who's working every day for Meet the Germans, but they will come and do like a week each in a month. And yes, so Suji joined us recently. She's probably the latest person, and I think in total, once Jen comes back from maternity leave, we'll be back to 6 in total. Yeah.
Cool. How many videos do you guys put out usually?
YouTube, the sort of rough framework is about once every 2 weeks. Okay. It's been thrown into a bit of disarray during the last year, obviously. So lots of things with last minute have to be pushed back, or filming took a bit longer to organise simply because of the practicalities. But around that, once every 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
One thing that I thought was really cool that you mentioned was with the producer who's German, they have the insider perspective, you have the outsider perspective. So what does your audience look like? I would assume it's probably mostly the outsider perspective that you're focused on, or that's really consuming the media. But am I completely wrong there? Or where is your focus as a production team?
As a production team, our focus, where the people we're making the content for, is people with the outside perspective. So people living elsewhere who, for whatever reason, have got a connection to Germany. It might just be that they don't even know why they are interested in the culture, but they are. For some people, it'll be they might have lived here for a semester back when they studied, or they might have relatives here, that kind of thing. But it's definitely, we found it lands in different audiences. Different videos landed in different audiences. Sometimes you can't tell why. And German people love watching them too. And I think it seems to be also a national trait to actually enjoy looking at their own culture from the outside and seeing how other people see them. It definitely seems to be something they not only find interesting, but are quite open to. So they don't get, as far as I can see, particularly offended by, misconceptions or even stereotypes. They're willing to then talk about it and say, actually, in my experience, and I love that, especially, in the comment section under a YouTube video or on Instagram, the fact that these people come together with the two different perspectives and chat with each other. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both of us have the same experience, both on my YouTube channel and our podcast too. It's the same case that people from all over come together. They're like, yeah, this is what I always thought. And then Germans correct it or Americans correct it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
really cool to provide a platform for people to do that.
Exactly. And I think it's nice as well to then take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to say everything and you don't have to cover all perspectives. You do your best to do what you can. And you, of course, want to be balanced and you want to make sure you're not sort of misrepresenting something. But you can do things from your own perspective. That's fine. Put it out there on the platform and then let other people fill in all the blanks and offer new perspectives on the same topic.
Yeah. Do you have any numbers as to how many of the viewers are German and how many are from outside?
Well, that number is quite difficult, which I think one of the downfalls of analytics is, you can say people are tuning in from Germany, but does that mean they're German?
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of people who also have maybe recently moved here find this kind of content really useful, right?
True.
But it changes again for every video, but I'd say sometimes you get as many as 50% in Germany, and sometimes it's much less. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it seems to go big in India, and then the next week it'll be Turkey for some reason.
It's so interesting.
I mean, Deutsche Welle in general has an amazing program. Just for everyone out there who didn't know about them, they have amazing, also, I think, bilingual news and things like that. And don't they also have the slow-spoken German news?
Everyone loves that. I used to listen to that as well. Langsam gesprochene Nachrichten. Yeah, it's... I think that one comes from the Academy, and the Academy also has a whole section of German learning tools, which are really good, really good on their results.
Very, very helpful. So for all of our listeners and viewers who are trying to learn German and who are looking for authentic content, you can definitely check out Deutsche Welle. They have so much, like Meet the Germans, but also German learning stuff, and also just like they have all these different, correspondenten, like these different... correspondents all over the world who then report for this German news channel, but usually in English, which is also really interesting.
And I think that was one thing I was going to mention too, because I think we've had some questions like what type of news media do we consume? And from the American perspective, I feel like it could be interesting for some Americans who are listening and you want to see how maybe Europeans view the world. And I mean, we see a lot of BBC stuff, but maybe how German news presents a lot of the information. That Deutsche Welle is a great option for that because they have newscasts in English. Yeah, I watch that sometimes when I don't feel like listening to German.
Yeah. You can
relax
a little bit.
If anyone wants any recommendations, I'll plug a couple of my favorite things that DW does.
Yes.
Obviously, Meet the Germans is great. I'm also taking part in there's a new TikTok channel for the German learning department, which has been really fun. It's kind of been a different perspective for me because everything they do is just in German, so I can't explain anything in English. So that's called DW_Deutschlernen. There's also the other TikTok account DW does, DW Berlin Fresh, which is a bit more like look at the whole of Europe. And really cool new thing that DW is doing is Planet A. So that's more like environment focused YouTube, which is interesting because DW, they put sort of a mission statement. Part of it is, environmental topics, that kind of thing. So it's quite cool to see some of the newer channels and things that are coming out of the company.
That is really cool.
And where can people watch Meet the Germans? You already said it's on YouTube, but it doesn't have its own channel, right?
No, so we're part of DW Euromax. And they do all sorts of European lifestyle stuff. So there's also lots of other great content on there. And then you'll find Meet the Germans as a playlist for Meet the Germans on there. And Instagram, DW_Meet the Germans. And you will find it peppered around on Twitter and Facebook and all sorts of other places, but those are the two main places to find it.
Cool. Well, we only have 5 more minutes on this Zoom session,
call.
Which I feel, Josh, do you have any other questions? Because I have like 2 kind of like last questions that I would like to ask.
Go for it. I don't have a ton of questions. I just think the topic is really interesting.
For sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and maybe get this into the 4.5 minutes that we have now. So one big question that I had for you, Rachel, because the whole series obviously is called Meet the Germans. So what are the Germans like? What is it like to meet the Germans?
What a big question.
That is a big,
But we only got 4 minutes.
How many more minutes have we got left? Okay. In one word, wonderful. Wunderbar. No, it's been really, really great. And I've actually been so positively surprised by first of all, how well the Germans take it, as I said. But also, when we go out on the street and we do Vox Pops, when we go around with a microphone and ask people questions, people are so open. And the fact that they even talk to me just surprises me every time. It doesn't matter what the topic is, sometimes it's something really silly, like I get them to explain an idiom or I don't know, ask them about recycling. And then other times I might go up and ask them about their memory of World War II. And whatever it is, people are really, really open, and I really appreciate that. So I'd say meeting the Germans has been surprising, and I guess welcoming. I feel I'm still meeting the Germans. I'm not completely part of it yet, but I feel very welcomed by them.
Wow, I'm very surprised to hear that answer. Yeah. Very welcoming. Wow. Okay, we got 3 more minutes on the Zoom session, actually. So maybe I can just ask a little follow-up question to that, because people have asked me that before, and I feel like it's a very interesting question to be asked. If there was one thing that you could change about German culture or about how Germans behave, what would it be?
I think this brings us full circle, because it would just be to take a step back, take a breath, and just show a little bit of kindness to strangers. Even if in that moment you're annoyed by something or you think they're being a complete imbecile, just that moment to just think, you don't know what's happening in that other person's day, you don't know what's happening in their life, and you don't know what you say right now is going to affect them for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the supermarket cashiers. Be nice to me.
I couldn't agree more.
That's horrible.
But I actually had this recently, where I had an experience at the supermarket where I was I stupid or was she stupid? I can't remember. Oh yeah, I wanted to buy something so that I could get cash back, and then I didn't have something expensive enough, and then we had a sort of hin und her where I was just annoyed with her, and she was treating me like I was a bad person, and I was like, I just want to buy something. Like I'm here to help your company, I'm here to be a customer for you. And she just got so annoyed with me to the point where I got annoyed with her when I was, in my eyes, very rude. And then it was like day and night. She started laughing with me. She respected me. She wished me a good day when I left. So I sort of was very bemused by the experience.
Yeah, you'll have that. But yeah, sometimes you just have to confront it head on.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, though, about Germans. Sometimes they should just sometimes take a step back, as you said. That's like what I always complain about when I go back home, because I never noticed it before I left Germany. But now it really annoys me, too. And it kind of affects me. It kind of ruins my day sometimes, ruins my mood. And it's not necessary. And Germans are very big on rubbing their mood into each other's faces.
Exactly. And I think you have to ask yourself, what's more important? You getting that off your chest right now and maybe proving you're right in the situation or something like that, or maybe improving someone else's day.
Exactly. And with that, we're down to I think 40 seconds or something left on the Zoom call. So maybe this is a good point to just wrap up this lovely interview. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, Rachel.
Yes, Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good to meet you, finally.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really nice meeting you too. We're going to put all the links down below where you can check out Meet the Germans. And maybe we can collaborate again in the future sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. We can get you guys on our Instagram channel.
That'd be cool.
That'd be fun. We'd be happy to. Well, back to Jess, Faley, and Josh now. really enjoyed that conversation with Rachel. It was a really fun time talking to her and just getting her perspective. It was a little hectic there at the end, but we really, really enjoyed getting to sit down and talk with Rachel and pick her brain on some of those topics. And we hope that you guys enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I said that in the interview too, but I think sometimes we might need a little time limit like that because our episodes sometimes get way too long. But if you guys have any questions for Rachel in the future, maybe we can collaborate either on the podcast again or on some other platform. Maybe we can just do a little Instagram story session or something. But if you have more questions, follow-up questions, just put them in the comments below on YouTube. Or, of course, you can also reach us in all these other ways that you probably already know about. But we're still going to tell you one more time in case you're new. You can email us at understandingtrainstation@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, which, Josh, I think you should really, if you have any pictures from Strasbourg, you should post something.
I will. I will post something from Strasbourg. I will force myself to.
So Instagram is at understandingtrainstation, all just one word. And then people can also support our channel. Where can they do that, Josh?
Yes, if you guys want to support our channel, there are two options that you could do it. One of them is on Patreon. The website for us would be patreon.com/understandingtrainstation. It's like a monthly subscription service where you support us with a financial contribution, but you get some perks, some behind the scenes / kind of bloopers from our episodes. And then also we have a monthly essentially hangout. We called it a Q&A at the beginning, but it's definitely more of a hangout now. And I really enjoy getting to do those and get to know our viewers and especially the patrons. I hate
patrons.
So,
yeah,
it's
so
always
weird.
so weird. But if you don't want to support us on something that's such a commitment, you can also support us by giving us like a one-time gift on a website called Buy Me a Coffee. The URL is buymeacoffee.com/UTS podcast. It's just a one-time contribution, essentially buying us a coffee or a beer if you just want to send some money our way to help support the project that we're doing here. And I like to call it a project because we are trying to bridge cultures.
Yes, for sure. Also, by the way, Josh, you weren't there for the last hangout session because you were in Strasbourg, and we had some scheduling issues because just like we were all traveling, and then I was launching my online shop, and then like things are kind of chaotic. And this was supposed to be, because we have it monthly, so this was supposed to be the June hangout session, but we did it like beginning of July this time. But it was just me this time, and people said that they are not mad at you at all. They were like, you have every right to be in Strasbourg over being on a hangout session on your computer. They said it's totally apologized for. They're not mad at you. So just wanted to pass that message on to you.
Well, I missed you guys. It was
a lot of fun, actually. We had a lot of new people there. It was very interesting. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys want to join for that in the actual July session, then obviously, as we just said, you can support us on Patreon. And also one more thing that's kind of new, if you guys want to buy Understanding Train Station merch, you can do that on my shop. It's technically like I put up the shop for my channel, but I also put on some Understanding Train Station products. You can just go to feliefromgermany.com. All the links are just also linked down below. And you can buy a Understanding Train Station t-shirt. You can also buy a mug that says, I really need some coffee. I only understand train station. There's also a sticker. And I think that's all we have for now in that little section for the podcast. But we're going to launch new products in the future. Their t-shirts are really high quality, by the way, and they're embroidered. So if you want to support us that way and show the world that you only understand train station, you can just go there and buy some merch. But yeah, for now, I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I would say that's probably all I have to say as well. But we hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to talking to you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes. See you then. Tschüss.
Ciao.